welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Have you ever wondered what it means to truly connect with another human being? In our fast paced, tech driven world, it's easy to forget the power of genuine human interaction. We often get caught up in the hustle, neglecting the deeper connections that enrich our lives and fuel our creativity. So, how do we balance our professional ambitions while maintaining meaningful personal relationships? How do we stay human in an increasingly impersonal world? Well, today we're delving into the heart of these questions. Creativity is not just about the work we produce, it's about the connections we make along the way. Our interactions with others can impact our creative processes and outcomes. When we forge strong, authentic connections, we open ourselves to new ideas, perspectives, and inspirations that can elevate our work to new heights. But how do we cultivate these genuine connections in a world that often feels more disconnected than ever? Well, our guest today has navigated these complexities in one of the most high stakes environments imaginable, the world of transplant surgery. Dr. David Weill brings a wealth of experience and insight from his time in this intense field. He has seen firsthand the critical importance of maintaining humanity in the face of immense pressure and responsibility. His literary work, All That Really Matters, delves into the essence of human connections, providing a unique perspective that can inspire us all to prioritize meaningful interactions in our professional and personal lives. So join me as we explore these themes and discover how we can all learn to connect with one another more deeply and authentically. David, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jen, for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the basics. Tell us about yourself and where maybe your journey into transplant surgery started.
Yeah, it was a serendipity that got me into the transplant field. I showed up for my internship. I was literally on the first day of my internship, and they told us, and we were all of 2 weeks out from medical school, so we didn't know anything. They told us that one of the people on the kidney transplant service had gotten sick. It was a fifth year resident, so about 5 years ahead of where we were, much more experienced. And they needed one of us interns to fill in. And naturally, I raised my hand and I was hired on the spot. And so I didn't go into kidney transplant surgery, but I did go into heart and lung transplant. Based on the first night I was on the service, I saw a kidney transplant done. It changed the patient's life and it changed mine. And
Wow.
so, talk about being at the right place at the right time. That was it.
Oh man, I don't believe anything is coincidence, right? Like I honestly think there is a reason for everything. And so while I hate it for the one who got sick and vacated the spot, at the same time, clearly there was a story to come from you raising your hand and saying, I'm going to step in here. And then your whole trajectory just changed in that instance. There's no way that was coincidence. I don't know. You may not agree, but I just cannot imagine that being a chance.
No, I totally agree. I think in a lot of ways I was made to do that kind of work, and again, there's bigger forces out there than you and I, so I
Oh,
think they were
yeah.
they were at play there.
Oh, for sure. Now, are you still a surgeon?
No, what I did is I left the front lines, if you will, of transplant medicine when I left Stanford in 2016. And I opened a consulting practice where now I'm more coach than quarterback. I help transplant programs across the country and have international clients as well. And I help programs that are struggling for a variety of reasons. And so while I'm not directly working with patients these days, I work with programs who then hopefully will help patients. So
Yeah.
I got out of the front lines just because my daughters were growing up and they didn't see a lot of me and the commitment was pretty heavy. And so I decided to step out in 2016.
I love that. I think that, sometimes your priorities do have to shift a little bit, but that doesn't mean you're doing any less important work because clearly you learned from somebody and therefore there are people who need to learn from you. And so that's pretty fantastic. But then you decided to go a little masochistic and write a book. And I know for a fact that's not an easy task. So why writing? Why did you decide to write a book?
Well, when I left Stanford, I had a lot on my mind. I had seen a lot of things happen. I had gone through a lot of emotional ups and downs of doing this kind of work. I was out of gas,
I
basically.
bet.
And I wrote a memoir at that point called Exhale that was published in 2021 and really enjoyed the process of putting all my thoughts onto the page and really understanding what I was thinking. I decided after Exhale was published that I wanted to go a different route. I felt like I had explored a lot of the topics that were important to me, but I left a few of them alone, largely because nonfiction is a bit constraining. You have to tell the truth, and you also don't want to offend people, and sometimes you can't tell the whole truth because of that. So then my novel, All That Really Matters, I was able to tell the whole truth. And I could tell things in a way using fictional characters that I couldn't do in my memoir. So that's been my writing journey thus far.
I love that. And you're right. Like writing fiction and nonfiction are two totally different ball games for so many reasons. Like there is a lot of freedom to be had in writing a novel because, like you said, there are constraints to nonfiction. But to be a surgeon, there's a lot of discipline and structure and precision involved. So how did that kind of merge with the creative freedom of writing? Like, was there like a point in time where you're like, I have to be two different people, or did they just kind of mesh seamlessly?
Red wine helped quite a bit.
It usually does, whatever the problem.
Yeah, yeah, yes, but enough of my problems. I actually really, in I'd like to say that it was very difficult and I really sweated it out and all this kind of stuff. I didn't. I got a huge, bulletin board and started putting little scenes on note cards and then just sort of weaved them together. The reader's going to have to figure out whether or not, I succeeded at it or not. But I really enjoyed the process. I didn't hate it at all. I didn't feel, like it was work. In fact, I was having a blast doing it. And I think that the 25 years in the hospital gave me plenty of material. So I haven't run out yet, not by a long stretch. So
So there will
tons,
be
tons.
another one then. You're going to write another novel based on all of the extra.
At some point, my third book is already under contract. So my third book's already sort of baked in, if you will. So the question will be what to do in a fourth effort if I'm still around at that point. So,
That's fantastic though. I love that. I will say that I am not a plotter. I don't sit there and I don't have a bulletin board. I have
yeah.
a moment of in my mind it flashes and the next thing you know I'm writing and I know how I'm going to get to the end, but all of my characters have to tell me how to get to the end. So I do think that doesn't surprise me that you would have the planning aspect of the writing down.
Yeah, I'm a kind of a scribbler, and so a lot of things that I kind of write in a journal or on a bulletin board end up in a real written piece of work. So I'm a bit of a scribbler. So
Nothing wrong with that. My notes app gets a very hard workout all the time. I'm like, oh, there's an
yeah,
idea. And so it's just, there's always something going on inside my head.
no doubt.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Okay. So talk about your creative process then. What is the typical, do you write every day? What's your typical writing day look like?
I write every day. I either write long form, working on one of my books. I'm working on this third one right now, and so that's long form, very long form. And I also write shorter pieces, more opinion pieces and essays. So I'm writing every day, and I typically write first thing in the morning. I stop. I listen to music the entire time I write. I'm a big jazz music fan. I listen to it the whole time I'm writing, and I stop around noon, get something to eat, and then I do my consulting work for my consulting clients in the afternoon. So I kind of split the day in half, and then the red wine comes in at the end of the day, as I mentioned.
And that's where all the new ideas come from for
That's right.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
right. And they sure seem good in the moment, don't they?
Isn't that the truth? All the best ideas
Yeah,
do. And then you look back and you're like, what exactly did I mean by that?
that's right. I've
Yeah.
done that a lot.
But that's okay because sometimes you can make sense of it. And next thing you know, you've got the next bestseller. So I'm
Yep.
feeling pretty good about that. No.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about your book, All That Really Matters. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Pretend like I know nothing about it. Tell us about it.
So, not surprisingly, my protagonist is a heart transplant
Oh,
surgeon.
surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. It's a
Hmm.
world I know pretty well, and even though the book has really not much to do with me, certainly an environment that I know. So my guy is Dr. Joe Bosco. He has a steep rise in his career. There's a lot of expectations that are put on him by himself and his father, who, oh, by the way, is a Nobel Prize laureate.
Ooh.
And Joe soars. until he doesn't. And it's a love story in a lot of different ways. He's got a love interest, and that relationship takes some twists and turns. And Joe gets himself into a bit of trouble, and he has to try to find his way out of it. And that's the basic structure of the book.
Nice. Were there any challenges that you faced when you were writing to to make sure that it was realistic without being too realistic? Because we read, I read to escape reality. And so sometimes those situations in such a high pressure environment could feel a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I tried to, because I value my readership, I tried to go light on the transplant stuff and and more heavily on the emotional aspects of doing the work. But also I really wanted to dig into how expectations that we have really can either make us happy or quite miserable. And I think those that have the highest expectations that life has to be perfect, they have to be perfect, they have to look the right way and act the right way and be the right way. Those are some of the least happy people out there.
Mhm.
And I wanted to show how expectations can really, really do a number on you. In fact, I opened the book with Joe writing in his journal about that very topic. And like many writers, I am interested in the things that I'm thinking about currently. And as I was writing the book, I was thinking, what do you, David, expect out of this life, and how can you make a story out of it? So that's what I tried to do.
I like it. So sometimes you just have to write what you know, and I think that for me, and you kind of alluded to this earlier that writing is almost therapeutic. Like you're putting stuff on the page and you're processing it as you put it on the page. Even through fiction, for me, I found that to be the case. Did you find that to also kind of happen for you?
Very much so, very much so. Because also, it helps you. It helps you imagine what could happen.
Hmm.
And I think that it's interesting. If all of us along the way choose the right side or the left side, door number one or door number two. And I enjoy the process of saying, well, what if this happened to him? And what if that happened to him? I rewrote the ending 3 times. I had 3 different endings, which was about, geez, 3 or 4 months worth of work.
Yeah.
And I kept ending the book differently because I was interested in seeing, what was going to happen to this guy at the end.
That could have been an amazing marketing ploy where you released all three different
Yeah.
endings.
Yeah, yeah. No, I didn't think of that. I was trying to satisfy my agent and editor with one ending, so I didn't think about, what happens if I could. I'll do all three.
I mean, it's a choose your own adventure kind of book, I guess, at that point. No, that would have been amazing. And then you would have people discussing, that's not how it ended. I read the same book. That is not how it ended. I
That's
could
right.
not. That would be amazing.
That would be. But the good thing about having 3 different endings and that my editor and agent saw all 3 different ones is, if the one I really liked,
Mm.
was the one that everybody liked, then I can say, yeah, I told you so. So I've got that.
I do like that as well. That's a pretty good feeling, too.
Yep, yep, no doubt, no
Just kind
doubt.
of poke it and be like, nanner, nanner. So, okay, in the hospital setting, when you are the doctor, there is this level of humanity that you have to, you bring humanity to the forefront as much as you can, dignity and that kind of thing. Hopefully, I'm assuming you're a great doctor. You seem like a fantastic person, so I'm just going to assume. So pretend you are, just in case you're not.
Okay.
Okay, great. This is the role that you're playing now. So you bring humanity to the forefront. You would have to do that in your writing as well. Did you find that to be easy to do, to maintain, or were you just like, you know what, I'm tired of maintaining the dignity and humanity of people, I can do what I want to my characters? Like, does that translate well to you for the page, or did you struggle with that at all?
No, I didn't struggle with it much. I think that, I was the kind of doctor. I did a lot of things by feel, and
Mm.
I did a lot of things with personal relationships. I wasn't the most scientific of doctors ever. I, I hopefully knew enough to do the job, but I wasn't the most scientifically oriented person in the world. And so a lot of my work was relationships with patients, relationships with colleagues. I was very much into that, the humanity of it.
Yeah.
It was more of a liberal arts thing for me than it was a scientific process. So I hope my writing reflects that. I medicine interests me, but only to a certain extent.
Mm.
The humanities part of medicine really interests me. The science of medicine, not as much, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have it, but at the same time,
Yeah,
no, I'm with you. I'm the same way. My background is, well, some people might call it a pseudoscience, but it's psychology and counseling and that kind of thing. And so when I approach it, I don't approach it from you're another statistic, right? Like I can't see it that way. When I'm looking at somebody on my screen because we're doing a virtual counseling session, it's a person, right? It's not another person who is just going to go in my checkbook or whatever. It is a human being that has to make a connection, that I have to make a connection with. And so I do find, however, and this was something that was pointed out to me recently, is that I write too healthy, emotional and mentally healthy people. Like my characters are too balanced. And so, did you ever run into something like that?
no, because my characters in the novel are at least the main character is not balanced.
Oh, excellent.
uh, and I would say that there are other characters that you'll see in the novel that also have issues. I mean, and again, informed by my work in the hospital, this is a high stakes area of medicine. A lot can go wrong.
Yeah.
There's life and death in the balance. I don't think it's going to be a news flash to say that the people that do this kind of work have huge egos. You kind of have to,
Yeah.
and you know, some of those people, are they the greatest guys and gals outside of the hospital you've ever seen? Not really, but they're probably the people that you want working on you when you need a transplant.
Oh,
So
seriously. Yeah.
those are the kind of characters that I decided to write.
I gotcha. Did you ever base any of your characters on somebody you know, or are they all completely fictitious?
No, they're not. They really. I could sit here and say I made them all up, but I really didn't. I mean, they are combinations of people that I knew. Some of them are pretty close to somebody that one person that I actually knew. I would say most of them, though, are combinations of people that I saw in the hospital. But it's not science fiction, and they're not from another planet. Like, no way could this guy or gal be like this. I mean, they're pretty close to how people really are, at least in my experience in the hospital.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I like to watch people. I like to take a little bit of this person, a little bit of that person, and put them in there. But I'm with you. I try to make sure that my characters are individuals, right? I don't want them to be stereotypes or anything like that. But there are times where I'm like, I thought that was a really cool person, and maybe I could take a little more of them than somebody else. And so I just kind of wondered if because a lot of people do write characters based on people they know. Usually it's the bad guy and they get rid of them, but
Yep.
it's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the characters were really good people,
mm,
and some of them were not so good,
yeah.
and but that's true of any group of people you encounter probably in real life. Some of them are going to be
Oh
okay
yeah.
and some of them aren't.
Oh, for sure. I have a character in my current series. I literally, before you logged on, was texting with one of my beta readers for my book that comes out in October. And she was like, I liked most of your characters. I was like, I need you to elaborate on most. I need to know which ones because all of a sudden I'm thinking my main characters or like one of the main side, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I love all my characters. And she named a name, and I went, oh yeah, bless her heart. Like, yeah, she's a character you're not supposed to like her. Thankfully you didn't, but at the same
Right.
time, I was like, oh, okay, good. You didn't like. You liked all the right characters. You didn't dislike the wrong character.
No, that's good. That's a good
Yeah,
thing. Very good thing.
absolutely. No, for sure. Are there any stories in your book that came from a real experience that just really stuck with you to the point that you had to put it in a book?
Yeah, there are, and I don't want to say which ones because the reason I don't is I want to leave it to the reader to figure out which ones I made up and which ones I didn't. So I'll leave it there. What The opening scene I like quite a bit, and the reason I like it is it's a graduation.
Mm,
Um, I said the first paragraph is actually a flash forward in time, but the real opening scene of the actual book is a graduation, and I love the idea of graduations. I just had two in my family. My one of my daughters graduated college, one graduated high school
Nice.
just a couple of weeks ago. And the reason I like graduations is because they allow that reflection. It's a turning point,
Yeah.
and they allow this kind of reflection. So my guy is sitting at his medical school graduation, my protagonist, and he's kind of thinking about what just happened and what's ahead of him. And it's what probably most people do at their graduations. And it, it's it, it it's one of the most interesting scenes because it ends with a short interaction between the protagonist and his father, and it pretty much
Oh,
sets the table for the whole book, which is
I
what I was
love
trying
that.
to do.
Yeah, a little. I love that. It kind of grabs you by the heart and says, "Now you're in for a ride," and here
I
we
hope
go.
so. Yeah, I hope so. That was the intent, certainly.
I love that. Okay, so do you want to talk about the next book that you have coming out or that you're working on? Do you want to kind of give us some insight on that one?
Yeah, I do. I'm back to nonfiction for my third
Okay.
book, and I decided I was going to tackle a very easy subject, religious identity.
Yes, that is one that has never been solved. I'm so glad you found the answer.
Right. No, I'm actually gonna sort of give the whole world the answer to that issue. No,
Wow, you're going to be a millionaire. That's
yeah, I
great.
know, I can't wait. I I've struggled with it my entire life,
Mm,
and I come from that I won't bore your listeners with they can read the third book if they want to be more interested in it, but it's an ambiguous religious background to say the least, and it got it got me interested in a bigger issue that goes far beyond religion, which is identity. When we
mm,
look in the mirror each morning, what do we see? Who do we see?
yeah.
And some people identify as a transplant doctor or a podcast host or
Yeah.
whatever, and a husband, a father, a mother, a daughter. Um, and some people I think spend their whole life trying to figure out what they identify with, and some people identify with more than one thing. I certainly identified most closely with being a transplant doctor. If I look back at my entire life, that was who I saw in the mirror, for better or for worse. And I think that um, what interests me is there's a lot of folks out there that identify as a Catholic or a Jew
Mm-hmm.
or Southern Baptist or whatever it is. And I got interested in, because I didn't have that, how does that impact somebody that when somebody asks them, what religion are you? They don't really have an answer for it. And that was me most of my life.
Wow. Do you want a spoiler alert and tell us where you landed?
No. I don't want to ruin my third book before I've even written all of it.
Gotcha. No, that's perfectly fair. But you're so right because, it has taken 40 years for me to realize that all of those labels that I kept putting on myself were technically put there by other people.
Yes.
And I hadn't really taken the time to reflect and be like, who is Jennifer? Like, who am I? Like, who have I always been?
Yep.
And that has been, even just through writing fiction novels, have I really started to uncover some of the things that I was surprised about. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a people pleaser. Nope, I'm a reformed people pleaser because I'm done with that. It's just those little things. And so I love the idea. Now, religious identity, I got a whole lot of that baggage going on. And so we could go for hours talking about that. So when you get that book out, we're having another conversation.
No, I can't. I can't wait. And actually, as I've told people about the book, I always thought it was a very small number of people that had religious identity issues. Apparently not, uh, because a lot
Nope.
of I always just assumed I grew up in New Orleans, which is a very Catholic town, and I
Yeah.
assumed everybody, understood that they were Catholic. There's also a multi-generational Jewish community here. I thought, okay, everybody understands that. I'm neither one of those things. But it seems like the more I've talked about this next book project, the more I've understood people do have issues with it. So.
Oh, yeah. No. So I will just, my background, my dad is still a Southern Baptist pastor. He was a Southern Baptist pastor before I was born. He is a Southern Baptist pastor today. I am no longer Southern Baptist. I am a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. Like that is something that is my identity. That is the one
Yep.
identity and label that I will choose to embrace, and nobody put that on me except Jesus. And so,
That's good.
that's where I stand. But I will say that the baggage and all of the burdens that came with that and figuring out who I was. It was probably 10 years ago before I finally realized that I am not a believer or a Christian because my parents were. That's
Right.
that's crazy to think about, but it's true because I was
Where?
at church all
Yeah.
day every day.
Where'd you grow up?
In Alabama. I live in Alabama now, and I have lived in Alabama my entire life. So everybody here's a Christian.
What town? I know. What town? I've got more. I've got to get more specific here.
Okay, so I live south of Birmingham in a little town called Calera.
Awesome. So here's one I'll throw out at
Okay.
you. My mother was born in Selma.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
Southern Baptist, as she said, they were in church anytime the doors
Mm-hmm.
were open,
Yep.
and we went to Selma every summer,
Yeah.
and so I spent a good deal of time there. I also spent a little bit of time early in my career, my transplant career at the University of Alabama,
Roll
Birmingham.
Tide. Whoop.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Okay. Oh, in
So
Birmingham. Okay. So yeah, you're
yeah,
right up the road. Uh
yep.
huh. Yep. That's where
So
I was.
so Alabama's near and dear to my heart. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, I grew up. I was born in South Alabama. Lived in South Alabama most of my life, and then I followed a boy to Tuscaloosa, and married him, and lived in Alabama my whole life after that, with the exception of a 2 year stint in New Orleans because my dad was a police officer in New Orleans while he was going through seminary, and so
Uh-oh.
I know. And then we moved back to Alabama, and so yeah, it's good times.
Sounds good to me.
I mean, but yeah, you're so right. And we live in the Bible Belt. Like this is
Yep.
everybody who exists here. We are all apparently. So yeah, no, that I'm excited about that book because, and it's going to be heavy. I have no doubt that's going to be a very heavy book because, whoo, and yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I don't know if I don't know if that'll be the beach read that we're looking for,
Right.
but we'll
Oh my
see.
gosh. I love that. Yeah, okay, so we'll put down this book and we'll pick up this book, and then when that one's too heavy, we'll pick up the novel back and forth. We'll just see what happens. It'll be
There you
great.
go.
No,
There you go.
that's awesome. Okay, so David, we are to the point of the show where I'm done being the host for a little while. So you are now the host of Connected Conversations for Creatives.
Perfect. Tell me what your book's about that you're working on. You said you were working on a novel. Tell me what it's about.
I am. It is actually the second book. I've actually the most recent book came out in February, so I'm working on the second book of the series, and it's called Wrapped Up in You, and it is a continuation of a country music reality TV show storyline that it wasn't even supposed to be a series. Honestly, I wrote the first book of the series, Fall When You're Ready, and I was like, oh, but there's a character here that I need to kind of know what happens to him, and so I started writing the second book, and technically I've already written the third book as well, and the fourth book is in the works, but it centers on this competition of country music hopefuls, and it's really funny because this book that comes out in October, it's all about expectations and the expectations the main characters are feeling pressure of outside expectations and who are they really and trying to figure out who they are outside of what mom and dad want, outside of what they think is expected of them, what their baseball coach wants, that kind of thing. And so I think it's really convenient that we had that conversation about labels and expectations because that's what my book is about too.
That's great. And what made you want to write a series rather than just one book and be done?
Honestly, the characters wouldn't shut up. They
I
kept
see.
saying, "Hey, we have a story to tell and we need
Hmm.
you to tell it."
That's great. Series really interests me because, as a writer, because I'm interested in that you can kind of carry it forward, like so many great writers have done. So I'm going to look for yours. That's really great. I'm interested in that too. I don't know if I'll ever do that, but I'm interested in it.
It's exciting in the sense that I don't have to give up my characters and I get to I get to grow with them as they grow up as well. And so it's kind of like literally my babies are growing up, and so I love that aspect. I started with a Christian fiction series. I only got to book 2 of that one. an in between for that series that I'm working on in my head. I started writing it, but it's going to have to take. I have to get out of this world that I'm currently living in, and I can't because I'm really happy in my little country music world right now.
Uh, Well, that there's something to be said for being happy and a writer at the same time. So that's
Right?
good. I think that's a really good thing. So, all right,
Exactly.
here's my other question.
Okay.
So I had a signature question that I asked
Okay.
all the patients that came to see me for a transplant.
Okay.
I knew that they wanted to continue to live. That's why they wanted the transplant.
Mm.
But I wanted to find out why they wanted to continue living. And so I asked them, what would you do if today was your last day?
Mm. Mm. Man, that is such a good question. And I can promise you that you are the only person who has and probably ever will ask that question. That's amazing to think about because, on the one hand, you think, I just want to stay home with my family. I just want to stay home and enjoy that time. Golly, David, you're going to make me cry thinking about, I've never cried on my show before. Okay. Oh, um, golly. And that's,
I have that effect on people.
all right. Well, thanks for coming to the show today.
Right. We'll be signing off now. Yes.
I'm so glad this is audio only. Oh my god. Okay. I don't know. Like, I'm just going to be completely transparent. Like, I don't surround myself with a ton of friends. I have a very few handful of people that I trust and let into my inner circle. And so, but I'm also very heavily family oriented. And so it would definitely be a day full of family. And if anybody else thinks they are my friend, I apologize to them. I can think of maybe two people that I would bring into that moment to say, this is where we're going to part ways. And I would probably just end it with, I hope I've added value to your life because I know that if they are in that room with me, they've added value to mine. And so we would just kind of bask in that until the day was over and the lights went out. And so I think that's what I would do with my last day. It would just be, God, David. I'm sitting here crying. Sorry. Nobody can see this, but it's true. It's what's happening. Um, but yeah, that's what I would do with my last day is spend it with my people.
No, it's great. It's amazing how many times ask that question of folks, and not once did somebody bring up work or
Yeah.
anything professional or
Nope.
anything to do with money or success or whatever. It's always about connection to other
Yeah.
people, and that's a common theme. And I've really loved hearing people's answers. I loved hearing yours, and I'm sorry to make you cry on your own show. That's not fair.
No, remember, I'm not the host for this. This is all
Oh
you.
yeah, that's right.
This
It's
is
me.
your
So,
fault.
okay, apology rescinded then.
I'm never coming on your show again.
Probably not. Probably not.
No, that's a fantastic question though, and you're so right because people don't think, and I think about, right now, if today was my last day, I have a 14-year-old daughter. I'm like, how much could I pour into her before that day was over? Like
Right.
how much value could I add? Um, God, whoo, geez, the Willikers. Okay, I got this. I got this. Um, we gotta change the topic. Like I'm sitting here
Right.
boo-hooing.
Let's talk about something easy like politics.
Perfect. I really don't care. No, no.
No, right, right.
Yeah, seriously. But I think that is valid to a great question to ask every day. You should definitely be living like it's your last day. Now, granted, we do have to go to work. Even if
Yep,
it is our last day, there's a chance we don't because we don't know. We have to be at work. It is what
yep,
it is.
yep.
We have to take. But again, it goes back to, are you adding value to whatever situation you find yourself in? And that's been my theme word for the years, being intentional and intentionally adding value or intentionally being present, that kind of thing. And so I don't know why we don't approach every day like it's our last day, because geez Louise, you just don't know.
Could be. One day it's going to be. I
Yeah.
hate to say.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm pretty secure in my future, even hereafter. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yep, yep.
you
You're in good
know.
shape.
Yeah, I'm good. Golden. Fantastic. David, this is such a great conversation. I have two more questions for you that are very specific questions. The first one is, how can listeners connect with you and your work?
Pretty easily. DavidWeill.com. So David, Weill.com. It's pretty much all there. I'm easy to find. I'm on all the usual social media platforms. I'm out there.
Perfect. And then this last question, it's the big question, and it is pass or fail. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What
Oh,
is
I thought that was the question.
Oh no, no. That was a little question. This is the big question. What is one piece of advice or encouragement you want listeners to walk away with if they hear nothing else?
Remember the three F's. It's the only thing that this whole world is about. I learned this from my patients. Only three things that matter: family, friends, faith.
Mm.
Three things. Easy to remember. They all start with the same letter conveniently, and it's all that really matters. Not to plug the title of my book, but there it goes.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. No, it's a great title and it's such a great message too because you're right. Like and when you don't have one of those three things, your life is out of balance. Like it just
Yep.
really is. There's nothing you can do about it except try to find that balance. Like whether you have strained relationships with friends or family or even with your faith. Oh my goodness, one of them's out of balance, your whole world is just off axis. So
You're
yeah,
right
that's
about that.
fantastic
Yep.
advice. Yeah. David, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation. I forgive you for making me cry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and I do look forward to reading your new book. That's the novel and the nonfiction book that's coming out. I think both of those sound very intriguing, and I hope that you have just the best success in everything that you go after.
I appreciate that, Jen, and thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. You're a great host.
Oh well, thank you so.